Hi everyone, it's Liz with Journey of Healing. A lot of people wonder, like, what is it that I do? So I've talked a little bit in the past about, I feel that there's 3 pillars that we have to work on. There's emotional, there's physical, and there's spiritual. I kind of look at it like as if we have this circle and you put a pie in them. So in one side there's going to be emotional, the other one's going to be physical, and the last pie is going to be spiritual. And if you take out just one of those pies, then it's not going to be a full circle. And so with Journey of Healing, we actually work with all of these areas. And I've talked a lot about the physical part on some of these videos, and I've also talked about some of the emotional and some of the spiritual. Well, I wanted to share an experience that I had while working with a client to maybe help you to start looking at things just a little bit differently. And when I'm teaching people about emotions and how we collect all these emotions inside of us, and we just keep on burying them and burying them and burying them. And in the process, what happens is we start to become disconnected from our emotions and who we are. So in the process of doing this, we then start to bridge this gap so it gets closer and closer and closer. And then we are able to then start to feel really what our body's feeling. And then when we're able to feel what our body is really feeling, then we know what it actually really needs. And so it's very important to become connected with you and your spirit and your emotions and your body, and everything needs to become one. So I was working with this client the other day, and recently her husband had just passed away. And she was struggling with it, just like many of us. If we were going through this, we would be struggling with this also. But she was just reached out so that it can help her through the process, which is good, because I've talked about how we're supposed to have these emotions. And a lot of times what happens is when we have these emotions, we get kind of afraid, and so we start pushing it away. But we actually, to be able to work through, it's actually really healthy to be able to work through these emotions, because we should have these emotions come in and then we should have these emotions go out. And so, but we have to first figure out where these blocks are, where these emotional things are that we need to help release. And as I was teaching her about, I find a lot of emotions by muscle testing and things like that. As I was teaching her about what muscle testing was, I just had her bring her arm up like this, and then if those of you that have had muscle testing before, you would be more familiar with this. But if it stays strong, if you say something that is positive and good about that person, then your arm will stay strong. But if you say something that doesn't apply to them, then your arm will go weak. And so I just do this as a quick demonstration in the beginning to show them the power that we hold with this. So usually what I do when I start out, I tell them to say like a guy's name. And if it's a female, I just say, a guy's name. If it's a male, then I have them say a female name. And it always goes, the arm just always goes weak. And then when I have it say their name, it always stays strong. So I just said to this lady, I'm going to change the name because I don't want it to be, I feel it's very confidential. And I said, say my name is Jack. And she's holding her arm out there, and I said, resist. And all of a sudden she just dropped down and she said, did you know my husband's name was Jack? And I said, no, I didn't know your husband's name was Jack. And I sat down and I said, I want you to know that your husband's here right now. I actually use the name Bob all the time, but I just had this quick feeling I needed to use the name Jack. Your husband had prompted me to say that to let you know that he's here. And all of a sudden she sat there for a second and she looks up at me and she goes, I feel him. I feel that he's here. See, this is the part about emotional work, is that, like I talked about, that we become disconnected and we kind of push away those feelings because we're scared or we don't know. But being able to pull that in and to feel that is part of the healing process. And as we continued on with the session, I told her, I said, you know, there's something happening to you at around age 34. I don't know what it is, but you are carrying some of those emotions to this future emotion right now. There's something that happened that was like what's happening to you then as it is now. Do you know what this is? And all of a sudden she started to weep. And she looked up at me and said, I lost my baby at that age. And this was a traumatic moment for her. And you can see the same parallel that it had happened. And so we went on to talk about how when she was 34, she didn't reach out as she is doing now to be able to work through these emotions. And so that emotion now is being triggered by this emotion. So we actually had to deal a lot with the loss of her baby, and the feelings that she had had surrounding that. And she told me that she doesn't feel him much anymore. And I said, I think that this is where a lot of your emotional trauma is coming from, is that you need to become more connected with him. And so I gave her homework. I gave her homework that she could go home and write down in the day 30 ways that she sees him in her life. I feel that these things are put before us all the time, but we are just pushing them away. And if we can learn to accept and see what this, even though this child's on the other side, but to see that this child is actually a part of your life, it is a huge healing process for us. And so I am sorry for all of those that have had to go through these experiences, as it is something that as a mother, as a friend, as a daughter, we don't want to have to be able to experience this. And there's a lot of people that have had to. But if we can find them in our lives and incorporate them into our lives, our healing process can be so much easier. So I hope you guys can take this and use this in your life and share it with those who you feel that are struggling. I just want to tell you thank you for spending this time with me and be able to hear others' journeys, and hopefully it can help you also. I'm Liz Watt with Journey of Healing. Thank you.